Well, the gist of the quote that I was looking for, which is Lama Yeshe, says two things. One is that if there's a conflict in the way you're living your life and your practice, you want to revisit your practice. That how I'm living my life, how I engage my life, should be really to lead me towards enlightenment. That there's not two things I'm doing. Here's my spiritual practice, and here's how I live my life. And I'm going to go do my spiritual practice. Whereas how I live my life is my spiritual practice. And to revisit that if we feel that they're different, if they're somehow different. And then he also makes the point that we're coming into today around the idea of meditation. He says, it doesn't matter if you sit cross-legged or this way or that way or this hand on top of this one or like this. What matters is, does your meditation address your mental affliction? I mean, that's what matters. So if we're doing a practice, is it addressing our mental affliction? Is it addressing the problems in our life? Is it addressing the suffering that we have? And am I living my life in a way that alleviates my misperception of the world, which is really the source of my suffering? And we always want to remember that the real source of my suffering is what? What's the real source? It's in our mind. What? Ignorance. Yeah, misperception, ignorance. I'm not seeing clearly. That's the real problem. We think it's a whole bunch of other things. We think it's, my neighbor, my job, my this, my that. And we really believe that to be true. And that is not the nature or cause or source of my mental and emotional suffering. It's not. My source is my misunderstanding of what's happening. And so all of these practices, no matter what they are geared towards seeing clearly. And if you see clearly, the idea is, according to the Buddhist teaching, you won't create karma because you'll see things accurately. You'll be alleviated from the karma and kleshas that limit us, that condition us, that are actually the source of this cycle of conditioned existence that we live in. Now, we've gone through many teachings on this, and we can get it for an hour maybe, and then what happens when we leave? It sure looks like my neighbor's the source of my suffering. It sure looks like my job's it sure looks like, wow, I'm suffering because of it. It looks like that. And then, for a little bit, we might come back in and, have a talk or read and think or do a little meditation. And, oh, yeah, right, I get it. It's interdependent. That's empty of all these characteristics. Yeah, I get that. And then I walk out and then I get frustrated, angry, resentful, and thinking that if things were different, I'd be happy. It's pretty strong, isn't it? It's very strong. I get this real strong sense that John is John. That's Tony. And, this world that I'm seeing out here is a very concrete, thing. And that's just not the way it is. And you don't need to be a Buddhist to get that. I mean, that's just physics. It's just the nature of reality, that everything that I see is relational and subjective, right? Everything's subjective. I have a subjective experience of whatever I'm seeing. And whatever I'm seeing is not only impacted by how I'm seeing it, but it's changing all the time. It's changing all the time. How I feel is changing all the time. Everything's changing all the time. There's no concrete world out there that is a particular way. But we really believe it is. So all of these practices are to bring us back to how things actually are and to see things more accurately. The real source of my suffering is I misperceive how things are. And because of that, I really start to believe that my happiness will come from some outer circumstance and my sufferings from some outer circumstance. I really want this to happen because it'll feel good, and I really want to avoid that. And in doing so, I create a lot of karmic imprints. And I reinforce those. And that doesn't need to be a big abstract idea. Karma, it's very abstract, What's karma? Well, how about just habits and tendencies? You'll notice if you do things a lot, you create a habit. And then it becomes very strong. And you'll know that when you try to break a habit, it's very difficult. What we water grows. It's that simple. So it's not, it needs to be some esoteric karmic thing that's hard to grasp. What I think about a lot becomes very true to me. And if I spend all my time, just seeking hedonic pleasure, that's where my mind is. Those are the habits I create all the time. So it doesn't have to be some big esoteric mystical thing. If I'm thinking, boy, I just can't wait to go hike, go bike, go do this, go do that, go on a date, blah, 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 and that's where I'm going to feel good and have fun, that's my habit. And then when those things don't happen, I'm not very happy. And then if they may not happen, then I'm stressed that they may not happen. And then, oh my God, what if they don't happen? What if I don't get that job? And then, oh my God, I'll never, and just this whole cycle of things that takes place nowhere other than my mind. Nowhere other than my mind. But we really think it's real because that's what we keep training ourselves. So when you think about karma, you could just on a very basic level think about what are the habits? Where am I spending all my time? Where are my thoughts? Where is my mind? And all day long, you may notice it's not questioning the nature of reality. It's not understanding the interdependence of things, or that we're in a moment impermanent existence that is changing all the time. And that I'm having a subjective experience of things. And that if I want to be more peaceful and at ease, I need to change my mind, not you. We don't generally spend our time there. We generally spend it really thinking about what's going to make me feel good. And then when it doesn't feel really good, then we come here. We go, what's up with this? I've got a nice house, job, car, everything, and I still am stressful, worried, anxious, and fearful. What's the deal? What's the deal? And then we might get a little poke of clarity and go, oh yeah, I get that. But then it's not reinforced. So, we go right back to our habits because they're really strong. They're really strong. And we've been doing it for a long time. From a Buddhist point of view, we've been doing it, eons of lifetime. So, just in a normal human existence, we've been doing it since we've been born, right? I mean, as soon as we're a kid, what are we doing with our hand? We're putting it in our mouth. And if we're doing something, we're seeing, does this taste good? Does that feel good? I like this. I don't like that. And I really want the things I like. And I really don't want these things. And this person I like, they're fun to be with. This people, oh my God, I can't be with them. And if I could just, rearrange the world just the way I would like, it would all be good. How's that working, How's that working? Go ahead. Yeah, I'm making this point, so time to dial in.
Yeah, but on the other hand, over lifetimes we've been developing these habit patterns that say create karma, let's say bad karma. But, all right. But yet on the other hand, we're here, and we are listening to Dharma. We have created the causes and conditions for Dharma to exist. So on the other hand, we must have throughout those lifetimes done good things too to find ourselves here. Can both of those exist together?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, so on the continuum, and we've talked about this, and this is where we started with the Lamrim meditations and trainings, are the rare and precious human rebirth that we have. So through these lifetimes, we've created the conditions for a precious human rebirth. And not all humans have that rebirth, right? I mean, when you think about 7 billion out there, how many of them, have the opportunity that we have? Very few. That actually have resources, education, training, all the conditions that are ripened, and the interest and the actual question in their mind about what is this thing all about. So we have all those ripe conditions, which essentially means from our point of view that you have, through all your lifetimes, done everything to be here in this moment and have everything you need to become enlightened. So that's positive, right? But we still have entrenched patterns, right? and I'm not enlightened yet. And I could still say, you know, I really am going to be like this today, and I might wind up like that today because my mind is strong. And so I'm still subject to all the karma that I've created. Karma and kleshas. Kleshas are typically translated as mental afflictions. Mental afflictions, yeah. So again, for those who are new, and this is a good sort of reference point, is to say that kind of to understand Buddhism, it's really not that difficult. It's just not. The view of Buddhism is that when we think about karma and emptiness, the nature of phenomenon, it just says pretty simply that how I experience this world, how I'm experiencing it, is through my karma and kleshas. That limits my view of seeing things accurately. It's like a dirty windshield. That's a view I like to look at. So that's how I experience the world. The world out here, when you experience it, you're actually experiencing it a little bit differently than I am, right? And if there's a cat in the room, going to experience very different than I am. So this world that we experience, pleasurable and unpleasurable, and how we see it, is through this conditioned lens, and that conditioned lens is obscuring my Buddha nature. My Buddha nature sees clearly. It has all the potentials, it's all the enlightened qualities. Some Buddhist schools say we have Buddha potential, some say we already have this, we're already there. But it's obscured. It's obscured. And it's obscured through the karma I've created, all these periods, these kleshas, and it limits my ability to see the world accurately. So if we understand that, we start to understand that if I start changing my karma, how I see the world changes. It's really that simple. And I can start seeing things more accurately. As I cleanse my karma, things are different. So everything, if I think somebody's attractive, is that person actually attractive? No, someone else might look at him and go, well, no, they're not attractive. And if it's this culture and somebody in a totally different culture go, really, you like those people? We want them a lot bigger, you know? And we might have a different view, and they don't like that. In other words, it's subjective, and the subjective experience that I'm having is through my karmic imprint of how I see things. So if I see someone who's attractive, they're not inherently attractive that I see them. They're basically, you know, as I like to say, a water sack, right? Humans are mostly water, and they're covered with skin. And so people are pretty much water sacks. And as water sack enters the room, I see them a certain way. You're going to see that same person a little bit differently. And, you know, their nature isn't a solid thing. It's just, you know, how I'm feeling. It's kind of like I'm filling in the characteristics. That's from me, not them. They're a condition, and I'm really painting in the fine details based on my karma. I might find them funny, I might find them attractive, I might find them interesting, I might find them annoying. And they are none of those things. They're empty of those qualities. I'm filling those in. I'm filling them in. So that same person I find annoying, someone else finds interesting. The person I find attractive, somebody thinks, what are you looking at? The person that, you know, I find very boring, someone finds very interesting. That's coming from us. So if you start to understand that the world that we live in, they say is empty. It's empty of these characteristics. It's not that there's not someone there. Somebody's there. How I see and experience them is an interdependent experience. And I'm filling in all these fine details. But my misperception is that that is who they are. And this is what they look like. And that's how, you know, they're a cool person, they're, you know, whatever person. And I make that real. And none of that's real. And it's all very subjective. And as I change my karma, everything else changes. Everything else changes. How I see people, how I experience people, the food I eat, right? You know, we've done that talk a million times. You know, if this were coffee, is the coffee delicious, right? Where's the delicious? Some people don't like coffee. I don't understand that at all. I just don't get that. Precious, radiant nectar. Some people call it coffee. Now, it's just hot water here, though. So if I like it and somebody else doesn't like it, is it delicious? And, you know, I know some of you have been hearing this talk a million times. Some are new and have not heard it. But where's the delicious? It's here, not there. So I've created the karmic imprints to have a delicious experience when the precious radiant nectar, some people call coffee, touches my lips. Somebody else drinks the same thing and they, what is this, dirty water? But we really think the coffee's delicious. We think the pie's delicious. We think, you know, whatever. And that's just not the way things is. We have a misperception. I create the karma that conditions my existence through my everything I think, say, and do. It's like a tape recorder. Boom, boom, boom. Everything I think, say, or do is creating imprints in my consciousness. My continuum of consciousness is just creating these imprints. And those imprints are all there. Pleasurable, unpleasurable, neutral. And as your karma or people or events happen, my experience of them is subjective through the karma I've created. So karma also has habits and tendencies. I'm just talking about the experience of how things are with emptiness. So if we get this, let's just put it real simply, that how I experience you is subjective. And the subjective experience is based on how I've lived my life already. This is resultant karma. How I experience you tomorrow can change. How I live my life today is creating imprints for how I experience things in the future. But either way around, I'm the one creating how I experience you, no one else. And if I change me, I've just changed my whole experience of everything. And so if we keep coming back to that, we start to understand that the outer world is this ever-changing palette of experiences and other beings and interdependent relationships that arise moment to moment. Clear, right? Yeah. So when we start to think that something is wonderful or something's not wonderful or something's delicious or not delicious or annoying or not annoying, any pleasurable experience I'm having or unpleasurable experience I'm having is because I created that. That same experience can be on an ocean in Tahiti and a beach, and I could be miserable. Or I could be, sitting on my front porch and be quite content. It's not the outer experience. It's not the outer experience. Now that doesn't mean that, karma itself is a very complicated thing, and there's multiple layers of karma and all that that's all coming together. And anything that happens isn't only my fault, okay? If I get in an accident on the highway, it's not just because of me, right? It's who built the highway, it's who built the cars, it's, all these conditions that gave rise, and who else was on the highways, and where do I live, and what's the karma of that, and streets, just all that. There's layers of karma for any event, and I have some skin in that game, but it's a much more complicated process. But whether I find this delicious or not has much more to do with me. I'm going to find it delicious. But all of us, so a cat, likes certain things that I don't like. Their karma sees the same room very differently.
So if you were equanimous and you're drinking hot water, that hot water would be as delicious as the coffee to you. Is that right?
So let's just say not with so much equanimity. Let's go more with insight and wisdom. That certain levels of realization and my karma that I've created, that's, quote the Dalai Lama, he says, when you're ready for this higher level of training and practice, is when you can drink, when wine and urine's the same to you. And there are beings that have that, there's great stories my teachers tell me. There's this some crazy yogi that was being lectured to by these monks, about his behavior. And if you've ever been to Nepal or India, they have these big trenches that are in front of the homes. I mean, urine, all kinds of stuff. It's pretty nasty stuff. And so these monks are lecturing this yogi, and this yogi's going, "Oh, okay." And he just takes his cup, he scoops up the swamp water, starts drinking it. He goes, "Yeah, would you like to drink this?" And the monks go, "Never mind, never mind." He's just demonstrating a point that says, yeah, it's he's achieved a certain level of being where he can drink that or drink this. It's the same. It's the same. And so, that's obtainable. And you will note, and so over years of practice, you can wind up that your taste change, that you can create that all of your food becomes delicious, that things are quite wonderful. And, I'm not claiming any level of realization, but I will tell you it's pretty hard for me to find anything I don't like, food-wise. Maybe that just means I'm gluttonous. I'm not sure. But I have pretty pleasurable experience in whatever I eat, pretty much. And that wasn't always the way. But you'll notice your taste will change over time. The same thing that I find delicious today, you'll notice, I don't really like that anymore. What's really changed? What's really changed? So, our primary problem is that we misperceive things. And because we misperceive things, we do a lot of things that creates more and more karmic imprints, and these imprints limit us. They condition our existence. And there are habits and conditions that we can find more conducive to a practice. So that's where, when I talked about the community earlier, is the reason I designed that was the idea that when people leave the room, when you're at home, there's another support and an opportunity to reflect upon, the nature of reality, the life you want to live, to cultivate ethics, concentration, and wisdom. So all these teachings go into ethics, concentration, wisdom, and the four immeasurables. And so all of the practices and all those invitations go to support that, which is a path to enlightenment with the four immeasurables. When I was at the monastery, I'm there with, about 1,300 other monks. And you're in an environment of everybody's talking about, Dharma. That's what we talk about. You wake up, you're doing, your practice. You've got breakfast. Breakfast gets served during practice and morning prayers. You leave that, and then, you go to school and training, and you do your practice. You get a nap in the middle of the day. And then, then you're in classes and doing practice, and then you're doing that till about midnight. Then you go do your own practice. And then you wake up and you do that. And then as you go to sleep, there's monks walking on the roofs, and outside your door, they're doing their prayers, they're debating each other, and everything is about Dharma. It's very conducive. We don't have that, right? We get an hour and a half here, and then we're out into all that other stuff. When I lived in Long Beach, near the center, as I first got involved, I lived in a little community where we spoke about nothing but Dharma pretty much most of the time, and then we went to the center, and we were there 3 times a week, and so a really conducive environment that supports reminding us that my mental afflictions come from here, not there. But when we walk out of here, we tend to really think that it's out there, and if that person's really the source of my suffering. And so, how do we change that? How do we change that? So we need to have a practice that fits the lifestyle that you're in right now, that can help you transform your experience of it. So that's where Lama Yeshe was saying, if my he used the word religious practice, is not conducive to transforming my daily experiences into a path that alleviates suffering, then I need to look at my practice and see what to do differently. And what ultimately, everything that we've talked about, we're at the the great scope. We're at the Mahayana Bodhicitta imprint of the Lamrim. We're at the highest level of motivation, and we're going through the 6 far-reaching attitudes. And we're really at a point now where it's concentration, the concentration. And at this point, when the context is to develop a mind that's actually healthy and balanced and can know its own nature. This is the mind that there's 9 stages of sort of that you would achieve going through what we call this sort of mental stability, shamatha practice, this in Tibetan, shine, calm abiding practice. And so that you can, through a meditation practice, be able to bring your mind to a state and let it rest in its natural state. Its natural state. When you're in that natural state of mind, of this pure awareness, there's the ability to rest there. It's described as luminous. It's just luminous. It's awareness itself. It's blissful. It feels great. And it's non-conceptual. It doesn't distinguish between you and me and all that. It's just awareness itself. Blissful, non-conceptual. That's your natural state of mind. That's not enlightenment, and that's a big problem. A lot of people get there and they think they've achieved, some sense of enlightenment. And but when you come out of meditation, boom, all my mental afflictions are still here, and I still see everybody in a particular way. So, with the Buddha's big innovation in terms of achieving enlightenment, he studied with all these great masters, and he went to these incredible masters. He achieved the absorption states. He went through these fine-tuned levels of samadhi, and sat with them, trained with them, and said, this is great. But he said, this isn't it. It's a vacation. I'm there, but I'm not liberated. I'm not free of mental afflictions. When I'm not in that meditative, when I'm not meditating, when I'm not in that level of samadhi, I'm still subject to conditioned existence. And so he had studied and he'd done these trainings, and then the story goes, he thought about a time in his childhood underneath a tree at a time, a certain level of state that he slipped into, and they call it sort of this state of shamatha, of calm abiding. And he thought, could that be the way? And so it's kind of interesting when you go through these levels of absorptions. From a Tibetan point of view, which is different than what's being taught in a lot of modern Vipassana, but from a Tibetan point of view, it's access to the first jhana. It's a state of being able to dissolve all of your sense consciousness, my hearing, sight, feeling, all that dissolves into just this state of pure awareness in the natural state of mind. No sense conscious, no body, nothing like that, just resting my mind at this access point. And he said, now if I can sit there, and the idea of achieving shamatha is that you can calmly abide, you can rest peacefully and abide in this state for as long as you want to, 4 days, whatever. And it's not the highest level of samadhi. And that's kind of the problem, was that when you go to the finer forms, the more subtle forms of mind, you lose the ability to do a real insight practice. And so what he realized was, if you go back to this one level of mind, of being to this entry level of this what we call shamatha, you can rest your awareness there, but it's not super subtle. If you wanted to think about something, you could. You could consciously say, well, let me think about this, and you can, if you wanted a thought, you can choose a thought, and you can still have access to an analytical part of your mind. So instead of overshooting it, very subtle samadhi, he actually went back to this state, and then developing the mind in its beautiful state of shamatha, he then did the insight practice that we call vipassana, and he was at that level, was able to meditate on the nature of reality itself. And then as he achieved awareness of that, because this mind was so stable, he could just imbue himself with the nature of reality, and became liberated, saw the nature of reality, was imbued with it over a period of time. And when you see the nature of reality, then you're not going to create any karma, because you see how things work, and you say, well, that just creates, like you just don't do it. The nature of it, you're liberated from that. And because no karma, no cyclic existence, no rebirth, the nature of things. So, his big innovation was that you need to develop this level of mind. What happens today a lot of times is people do vipassana type practice or little meditations on emptiness and the nature of reality, which are beneficial, but they won't liberate you, because we haven't got this developed state of shamatha, this really developed mind. And so at this point of the training, what we would talk about would be, how do we develop the mind to where it can calmly abide where we would like it. And in order for enlightenment to take place, that mind is necessary. So my teacher would say that, and he provides trainings. You can go learn this practice of shamatha. You can go do a 2-month retreat with him, and he provides you all the tools to go away. But he would say you'd probably need about 1.5 years to 2 years away in a conducive environment, away from things, with your basic needs being met, to go through all 9 stages and to achieve this shamatha. And he's got people doing it now. He's overseeing people that do this practice. And so that's a very concerted practice. Very few of us are going to have that opportunity. Okay? And I'll tell you, if you're young and stuff, and you're sitting here thinking, I can't even conceive of that. I can't conceive of the life that I have today, especially going back to how I was when I was 20 or 30, or the thought of what could happen. So don't ever think that could never happen. Just keep creating conditions. You never know. You can actually go train for 2 months and develop these tools, and you never know what conditions ripen for you. You have all the elements right now for enlightenment. You already do. And based on all the karma that you already have, some things happen very quickly. Sometimes people, you never know how things can ripen for people. So now let's get back to our busy life that we live in, where most people, if we meditate, we might do 20, 25 minutes in the morning. If we're really good, we might do 20, 25 minutes in the evening, which is a far cry from, 12, 15 hours a day for 2 years, right? A little different. Okay, a little different. So it doesn't mean that it's not beneficial. It means we need to be where we are, and we need to take a teaching like this and think, well, how's that going to help me cultivate merit and wisdom, see the nature of reality? How's it going to do that? So number one is that in these 9 stages, the first one, and I'll guarantee you, everyone here is probably a very successful first stage 1 shamatha practitioner. Stage 1 means you can identify the object. So if I told you we were meditating on the breath, and you could locate the sensations of breath, you are successful, level 1. You've done it. And really, that's the way to approach it. It's not, wow, I still have 8 stages to go. It's like, yeah, okay, I got one. I'm a successful number. And every breath that I take that's mindful, that's on the object, is achieving shamatha on that level. Level 2 means that for about a minute, I was able to be aware of the object without my mind going off. If I could do that for about a minute, well, then you're a real successful level 2 practitioner. And that's doable. It's doable. You can learn to be aware of an object for about a minute. And that wouldn't be too challenging. It's steady practice. And level 3 gets a little, there's kind of a big leap as we get there. Level 3 means that you're pretty much aware of the object of your meditation for the whole meditation practice. So if it's 24 minutes or if it's an hour, whatever, that you were there. And there's an incredible, let me see where I am. There's an incredible amount of benefit in training the mind even to start to be aware in just a minute. And if you can become, I found that just level 3, if you can become a meditator that is able to stay on the object for the length of your meditation practice, even if it's 10 minutes, 20 minutes, just whatever that is, you will find a significant increase in your attention into your daily life. Significant. And for me, I just think this is where all the rubber sort of hits the road. If I'm going to develop myself in any way and make my life meaningful, I have to actually be present in my life. I just need to be here. I need to consciously be here most of the time. And what's really shocking is how little of the time we're in our life. Right? Our mind is what's going on tomorrow, what's going to do that, blah, blah, blah. And we're just distracted. And you can see that when you try to meditate, right? The mind wants to go in all these places. And it's really funny because you know what happens when the gong goes off at the end of the meditation, right? There's an instant relief. Mind says, yep, we're back, baby. Man, glad that thing's over. My body feels better. The itch is gone, It's like, yeah. I'm running the show again, And it's just habituated. It's habituated. Our mind is just running the show all the time, telling us what to worry about, stress over, think about, blah, 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 painting the pictures for us, and we're just along for the ride. So if we really want to live a life that's meaningful in any way, shape, or form, we want to learn to train our own mind to work for us instead of just drag us around all day. It's habituated and conditioned. We would like to control. I'd like to think about this instead of that. This thought arises. I can actually go, well, is this a beneficial thought or not? And let it go. And do this. Right now I'm going to read this, and this is what I'm going to focus on. And I can read this. Right now I'm going to listen to someone, and I can actually listen to them without my mind going off in a million different places. So this type of practice directly addresses our biggest mental affliction, a busy mind. It's obsessive, compulsive, and delusional, and draw me around all the time. So as we enter into this, if I know that doing a concentration type meditation is going to empower me to be present in my own life and more conscious of my interactions, I'm training my attention, I'm cultivating attention. I'm getting attentional balance. I'm offsetting a busy mind or a lazy mind and able to just be here. That alone transforms your life on magnitudes it's hard to even explain. Because you're actually a member of your own life. You're actually an active participant. You actually get to make some choice. This is where I usually say that if you want any free will in your life, this is how you need to get it. Because otherwise we have no free will. Just being dragged around all day long. In order to have free will, we need to be there to make a choice. So first we got to be there. So I cannot emphasize strongly enough the real importance of a dedicated daily practice, even if it's 5 minutes, if it's 10 minutes, if it's 15, whatever's good, to start building a concentration meditation every day. this is going to crack that door to allowing you to be more able to pay attention to whatever it is you're doing. Now, we also have these other meditations throughout the Lamrim, which are meditations that are what we call analytical, sometimes contemplative. And those are meditations where we're going to think things through. They're more insight-oriented. And what we think about becomes important. So if I've taken some time to think about where's the deliciousness, I might remember that when I'm eating. But if I just hear it and then I go off and do other things, it fades away. And then in my daily life, I often think that person's really annoying. And there are no annoying people in the world. But I sure think there are. So we've said that a million times. But I bet you still think that there's some annoying people, right? What's really happening is I'm experiencing annoying feelings. I'm not even annoyed. Right? Annoying will come and go. I'm still here. So I'm not annoyed. I'm feeling annoyed. It's temporary. It's an impermanent mental state that will come and go. But when it's happening and I'm in the world, after this, I go, man, they are annoying me. And that's not happening at all. Misperception, misunderstanding. And because I find them annoying, you know what I do? I create a lot of karma to get them the heck out of my... I lie, tell them I'm not here, whatever. And I start creating more karmic imprints that create more suffering in my life by trying to avoid someone that I find annoying. And I'm actually creating the more suffering. So, the great teachers will say, we all want to avoid suffering, but we all love the causes of suffering. We really love the causes of it, but we don't like the actual suffering. And those causes are these temporary moments of pleasure that are based out of misperception. Where to feel better, I might lie and don't tell them I'm here, because I really think they're annoying, and I'm creating the karma of lying to feel good for a moment. So, in this whole process of developing the mind, it's important to create an environment that supports a realistic view of the world that we live in, the phenomena that we experience. And so it's nice to be around and to talk to people that support that practice, that understand that. I was very fortunate to live in a little community when I was first being trained before I was a monk, where we would actually talk, in this really, you can't do this in I was fortunate. We'd say, merely labeled John is experiencing the deliciousness of this thing that we label coffee. We would talk like that with each other, and we wouldn't say the food's delicious. We'd say, wow, I'm really having a delicious experience of this thing that we label pasta with that sauce that I'm seeing as red. And it was so helpful because it reinforced how things really are. And this community that I lived in at home, we could talk like that to each other because we were all doing the practice, right? And when I was in our Dharma group, we would understand merely labeled that this isn't a chair. This is labeled a chair. What makes this a chair, right? The only thing that makes it a chair is you and I call it a chair, right? We agree it's a chair. But where's the chairness, right? And so, in the regular world out there, your friends will not talk to you very much if you talk like that. Right? Gee, Susie, that glob that looks somewhat like pie that I'm going to label as pie, it gives me a very delicious experience. Susie's going to put that pie in my face. It's, So what happens is we get these glimpses of how things are, but we predominantly live in a world where conventional reality that we work in, is the opposite, right? It's very concrete. And so you say, yeah, this pasta is delicious. Now, I can know that it's, you know, labeled pasta, you know, I'm seeing it's food, and I'm finding it delicious. But I can say that, yeah, pasta is delicious. Thank you very much for it. But that comes from a lot of time and training over many years of really understanding the difference. So that's where I was saying that if you can be a part of a conducive environment where you take a little time each day to remember these key points in these teachings. That's the Lamrim is designed to get a teaching. First, wisdom, hear a teaching. 2, reflect on a teaching. So after this, go talk to each other about it. You know, what about that teaching? John, he's a crazy guy, isn't he? And, you know, what's, you know, because, you know, Jimmy really is annoying. I don't care what John says. And, you know, but that you talk about, that you tease these things out and you see, does this hold up? Does that make sense? Is this real? I'm not going to have any real ability to change unless I can start to have some faith in that this is true. Is that how things are? And so to, you know, have friends that you can talk to, have people that we engage with and talk about these things, the nature of suffering. You know, is suffering somewhere other than my mind? No. But you know what? When you're talking to people, it sure feels like it is, right? So how do we support? It's like a fish going upstream, right? Everybody's going this way, and I'm trying to swim this way. That's the power of a community. That's why, you know, I was talking about like the Mindful Life community, or if you have some friends or some things to do, or if you have a regular practice, a daily practice to wake up every day, go through the 4 thoughts that turn your mind to Dharma, right? Which I also like to call an accurate assessment of your current situation, right? You have a rare and precious human rebirth. You won't have it for long. You know, this body's going to come and go. And ultimately, through all this suffering, you have all of the great qualities for enlightenment. Won't have it for long. And what really matters at the time of death is how you lived your life. So your karma is the real essence. And I can be cultivating mental habits and tendencies that are healthy, that are based in love and kindness, that are based in wisdom with some clarity, that have the bodhicitta aspiration to be of benefit to others and plant some really good seeds. I can tend to the garden of my consciousness and water the flowers instead of all those weeds, you know. But you know, sometimes when we look at that garden, it's a pretty weedy patch, huh? Anger, resentment, jealousy, frustration, blah, blah, blah. And so the beautiful thing is we don't always have to pull the weeds. We could just stop watering them. And if I realize that the reason I feel annoyed is not because of you, it's because of I've been watering weeds. How do you make annoying people go away? How do they stop becoming annoying?
Stop feeling annoyed by them.
The annoying will come and go. But if I will start watering love, kindness, compassion, right, then I'm creating the seeds to have pleasurable experiences with people. That's on my side, not your side.
Aren't you creating seeds that would help you understand that they're suffering? And,
Well, there's the wisdom that you can.
and then if you realize they're suffering, then you can develop compassion toward them instead of calling them, you know, people.
Yeah, that's a tool, but that's all. Okay, so what you're talking about is a tool. Let's get there in a sec. We're trying to. The annoying comes from what I've already done. How I respond to you now, I can water seeds that will create more annoying people in my future, or I can plant seeds that will have more pleasurable experiences in the future. So how I respond, if I respond with more wisdom, compassion, I'm planting seeds that are going to give me a pleasurable experience with people in the future. So the real way to make annoying people go away is to not create the cause for them. And the cause are mental afflictions, anger, resentment, jealousy, sort of non-virtuous activity. Non-virtuous activity gives us unpleasurable experiences. Virtuous activity gives us pleasurable experiences. The more virtuous activity that we do, conjoined with wisdom, provide that I don't have unpleasurable experiences. So it's such a simple formula. All happiness comes from virtuous activity. All suffering comes from non-virtuous activity. It's so simple. And so if I don't want annoying people, I just do more virtuous activity. Which does not mean I'm a doormat. It doesn't mean I allow people to abuse me. It doesn't mean those things. It means I always respond with a way out of compassion in this situation which is most beneficial. Yeah, it's a lot to unpack. So we did go a bit over, and we still hadn't got to our topic, but it seemed like...
I thought something was missing.
Yeah. We got to it a little bit, and so next it's beautiful because next week we'll really unpack a bit more on concentration, on that mental stability, and then on Saturday after that we'll have a day-long for those that would like to learn more. But based on the questions that we had, I thought that this could be helpful, and we got some new people too. So. All right, so let's do a little dedication, dedicating the merit and wisdom we've accumulated here. Let us dedicate the virtue and wisdom we have accumulated, both individually and collectively, both here today and throughout our lifetimes. Let's dedicate this for the benefit of all beings. May all beings be free of suffering and find lasting happiness. And may we be able to use the merit and wisdom we have accumulated here today and throughout our lives to purify our own minds, to cultivate our own highest potentials, to achieve enlightenment ourselves for the benefit of all beings. In a nutshell, let's start watering the flowers, cultivating our positive potentials for enlightenment for the benefit of others. All right, well, thank you all so much. So good to be with you. And you online, thank you. And as always, try to stay out of trouble.